Is the American dream dead, alive, or on life support? And do young people have a chance today? And what if you're older? Is it too late for you? Well, you're about to meet a 34-year-old Main Street entrepreneur who built a billion-dollar business in just 8 years, starting with nearly nothing. And in the face of not one, but two major macroeconomic headwinds. In the same market people said it can't be done, he did it. And he's still doing it. Lots of valuable lessons for all ages in this one. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Main Street Capitalist Show. I'm your host, Russell Gray. We're here in our studios in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I've got an in-studio guest you're going to be super excited to meet. This is a young man who has become a real estate syndicator. He's an entrepreneur, family man, raising children, trying to figure it out like many of you out there are, but he's really had great success in spite of some of the things you may have heard about and the struggles going on when the Fed raised the interest rate. So please welcome to the show, Zach Haptonstal.
Thanks so much, Russ. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
I'm excited to be here. So the name of your firm is Rise48. I'm friends with one of your partners, and that's a bit of a story. But I always like to kick these shows off by just kind of getting a snapshot of where you are in life right now. Where are you, not just as a business, but really where you are as an entrepreneur, as a family man, just where are you at in life? And then we're gonna go back in time and kind of talk about the journey and pull lessons out, because there's going to be people who are watching this that are like, I want to be Zach Haptonstal when I grow up. And you're going to say, well, be careful what you wish for, right? So we'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, but where are you at right now?
Yeah, I like that approach. Okay, so I am 34 years old. I've been married for about 6 years. We have two boys. One will be, our first boy will be 2 years old next month. And we have a 6-week-old boy. So we got a newborn right now. So really excited about that.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So really excited. My wife and I we're super blessed. We're trying to have 6 kids is the plan.
Okay.
So we got to stay on schedule, Russ, and we got to have a new baby every 2 years is our plan to get to 6.
I have a daughter with 9.
Okay, so you know how that works.
My late wife and I had 5.
Okay, so that's awesome.
I know how that goes.
And for those who are wondering, my wife is on board with that. When I say that, people are like, "Is your wife okay with that?" I was like, "Yeah, of course. We've mutually agreed on that." But yeah, so that's kind of my family life. I was born and raised here in Phoenix. My parents, my wife's parents are here. We started Rise48 about 8 years ago now. So I've been an entrepreneur for about 8 years. Was just a W-2 worker prior to that. So I just grew up in a lower middle class family. My dad worked in construction, doing like painting, interior, exterior. My mom was like an HR manager at an accounting firm. So just regular lower middle class, and was taught go to school, get good grades, get a degree, get a good job. I played high school football here in Phoenix. I was decent. I had a Division II football scholarship, so did college football for a couple years. Then I realized I wasn't going to go to the NFL. Wasn't good enough or big enough. And so I really liked sports, and I wanted to become a sports reporter. So I got a journalism degree at ASU here, Arizona State. And I was on part of they had a program on Arizona PBS. I was like a live news anchor. And it's kind of funny, Russ, I went to school with like some of the top talent in media right now. So it's funny, I went to, like in my class, and who was also a news anchor with me, he was a guy named Bill Malugin. He's now like the top congressional correspondent and an anchor on Fox News. So you see him on Fox News all the time. And then there's like the top reporter at MSNBC. I went to class with him as well. So it's like right wing, left wing, kind of funny. The top talent in media. So I went to the top journalism school in the country. Hosted a show on Fox Sports Network for a little bit through that. And it was cool being on live TV. But I quickly realized that I wasn't passionate about that. Right? It was like it wasn't as cool to cover sports, do hard news, as being a fan of sports and things like that. And you couldn't make very much money. And I just grew up remembering that money was always this limiting belief, and it was always a challenge. I didn't want that to be the case. And so while I was going to school, I didn't have any assistance with that. So I was taking out student loans, and I was working full-time nights and weekends, delivering medical equipment. So working 40 hours a week. And when I graduated, I'm like, I don't want to go into journalism. I read Dave Ramsey's book in college, and I learned about, I need to kill my debt. And I had, $70,000, $80,000 of student loans. And I had a crappy car that always broke down, and I wanted to get a better car. So right out of college, I kind of parlayed my medical equipment delivery job into healthcare marketing, working for a hospice company. And for those who aren't familiar, hospice is basically provides nursing, caregiving for people with end-of-life care. And so my job was wake up in the morning, Russ, and drive all around Phoenix and walk in cold to like hospitals, doctors' offices, assisted livings, and build relationships with physicians, social workers. When they had somebody need a hospice, they call me, I meet with them, educate the family, get them signed up. So it sounds weird, but hospice is actually a very competitive and lucrative private business industry, all regulated and reimbursed by Medicare. Okay, and this is the top market in the country because there's so many geriatrics.
Yeah.
So long story short, by the time I'm 23, I'm making like $150K a year, making more money than both my parents combined have ever made. I bought a house when I was 23 here in North Phoenix. I started going and getting my MBA. I went to night school. By the time I was 24, I got my MBA and I paid it off cash and I paid off all my debt. I was just relentlessly saving, making money, killing my debt. By the time I'm 26, I'm making over $200K a year. I have no debt except for my house, my mortgage. I'm the director of marketing at this company. And I was completely miserable. I hated my life because it's like I had achieved my little financial goals and I was like, there's got to be more to life than just making money. And I'm in this hamster wheel. And especially in sales and marketing, you have pressure, you have a great month, the next month starts, you got to reset. So it's like, this sucks. I don't want to do this.
And you're still single at this point, right? You haven't introduced the complexity of family. Okay, so we kind of didn't get the big snapshot of where you're at today.
Yep.
And the reason I like to do that early, for those of you that are out there thinking, I'm going to click away, this is just this dude's story. You want to hear this story, right? Because of where it is today. So just talk about like today.
So I'm
talk about the business, the size of the business. Yep. You don't have to disclose like net worth.
No, that's fine.
Not asking for that.
I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Rise48 Equity. We are a private equity real estate company. So we raise money from investors and we buy large apartment buildings. Now, we have purchased since 2019, 66 different apartment buildings, $2.6 billion of real estate. We've raised $1.2 billion of equity. We currently own and manage over 11,000 units in Phoenix, Dallas, and North Carolina. So we're the biggest landlord in Arizona for apartments. We own and manage 6,000 units here, 3,500 units in Dallas, 1,500 units in North Carolina. We have over $2 billion of assets that we manage right now and that we own.
It's funny, investors. You know who was sitting in the chair right before you walked in there, right? Because I'm doing 2 shows today. Ken McElroy.
Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah, I know Ken. Yeah, I actually read Ken's book. It was one of the first books I read when I was trying to get into this. So I look up to Ken a lot. So that's cool. We have 350 full-time W-2 employees. And I didn't have any business background. I didn't have like a mentor or any family money. We just kind of grinded it out and built this thing,
So you've got this big company.
Yeah.
You've got a pretty good sized family and growing. Got plans for expansion.
That's right. We're going to scale that up.
So we're going to talk about that, kind of the go forward. But now that we've got a snapshot, here you are. You're this 34-year-old young man. You've built a multi-billion-dollar company. By the time a lot of young people are still just trying to figure out what they want to do when they grow up. Right. Yeah. So that's an exciting journey and one that's worth the people hanging around to hear. So now let's go all the way back.
Okay.
Right. You talked a little bit about, kind of growing up, going to college, playing football, realizing, so you pick back up. You have been a diligent worker. You've been a good above average earner. You've been a meticulous saver. And now you're realizing, okay, I conquered that, and you're lifting your eyes to the horizon saying, there's got to be more, right? I mean, if this is all there is, and I'm going to do this the rest of my life.
Right.
When did a wife, when did family come in, or how did you begin to make the transition from being a highly paid employee as a single guy to becoming an entrepreneur with a family?
Yeah, great question. So I did the hospice marketing for about 4 or 5 years, and it was my last year of doing that job was 2017, and I met my now wife, then girlfriend, in that year, right? And so I was already unhappy with the job, thought there had to be more to life than that, met Grace, and I think she also, tried to help encourage me to do something different because she knew I wasn't happy, and it was a tough thing. Like in January of 18, I quit my job. I have no plan, okay? I don't know anybody in real estate. I wasn't planning on multifamily, by the way. I just wanted to make passive income, whatever the hell that means, right? And I thought I'll do it through real estate. I didn't know anybody, didn't have any family money. So I thought I was gonna flip houses at first, Russ, was my plan. And then I realized very quickly that's very transactional. And so I start reading books.
It's a job.
It's a job.
I think a lot of people think that's investing. If you define investing as putting things on your balance sheet that pay you to own them, having something move in and out of your balance sheet and churning assets for cash, that's I would not call that investing.
I agree 100%. That's what I started to realize. This is very transactional, right? What's different than what I just left? And so I started like trying to really just absorb podcasts. I started listening to your podcasts in 2018 and absorbing your content, reading books, trying to go to meetups, things like that. At first I was like, okay, mobile home parks, that's a cash cow. That's what I want to do. And I had about 300K, okay, Russ, that I had relentlessly saved. And I got a little pop of equity that I sold from that hospice company. So I had 300K of cash. I thought I was rich at the time. Like I got 300K, I quit my job. And then I realized when I'm starting looking about real estate, that doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go very far. And it actually starts to drain very quickly when you don't have a job. So it was tough when you wake up in the morning and I used to be quote unquote the man in my industry, dominating my space, knowing what I'm supposed to do, what does success look like. So now I wake up, nobody tells you what to do.
I call that floating in outer space.
Yeah, floating in outer space.
Entrepreneurs have to learn to create order out of emptiness and chaos.
It's 100%
and that's a
right.
skill set that a lot of people can't handle. It's easier to go plug into somebody else who solved all those problems, and there's structure, there's vision, there's process, there's procedures. Here's your seat, here's your job, read the script, do your job, collect your paycheck, go home, and have a drink.
Yep.
And when you become an entrepreneur, it's like there's no desk, there's no office, there's no process, there's no procedure, there's no brand, and not everybody can handle that. But somehow you figured it out. How did you do that?
It's a grind. To your point, you have to be a creator, right? And the other thing that makes it even more challenging is that when you have this goal or this dream, whatever you want to call it, and you're trying to go pursue it, you start meeting with different people and you start telling them about it, and they're mostly negative. And they tell you, what were you doing? Why did you leave the job? Or you shouldn't do that. And it took me a few months in reading different books to realize they're just projecting their own insecurities or their own jealousy or their own limiting beliefs on me. Because by me pursuing these bigger goals, I'm making them feel, worse about themselves. And you have to realize that. And so, I mean, it was tough. Like there were dark days where you're just like, what am I doing? Like, am I doing the right thing?
Lonely.
It's very lonely. It's very lonely. And after a while, Russ, you just get like a hardened shell, right? Where you're like, I'm going to do this no matter what. I don't care about the financial success or not. I'm now going to do this to prove it to myself. So it was 14 months from when I quit the job to where we bought the first property. It was a little 36 unit, $3.5 million deal. I was dead broke. I mean, I put all my money in the first deal. My then girlfriend, now wife, had to pay our bills because I was making minimum payments on my credit card to not go into default. I made no money the first 3 years, 2018, 19, and 20, dead broke, literally. I had to go back and get a job. I went back into hospice sales because I ran out of money and I was running the real estate company at night. I did it for another 18 months. So I actually quit twice. I had to quit my career twice because I had to go back and do it. But then, end of 2020, we finally start selling deals. We get liquidity. And at that point, I could have just said, okay, take all the money and be in a good spot. But we decided we want to build like an empire. We want to have a dominant real estate company.
When you say we, you and your wife, or you and
my partners and I.
So when did the partners come? So you were operating solo.
Yep.
And then you have this epiphany. I'm going to quit.
Yep.
Now you've got your wife was with you when you quit, so you had the good job.
Yep.
And a little bait and switch.
Yeah,
make a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
Now all of a sudden I'm an entrepreneur, honey, and we don't have any money.
That's right.
So you pay the bills. Well, I work harder than I've ever worked for no paycheck.
Yep.
And
100%.
believe in me. So that's great. Kudos to her, because not all women can handle.
She had my back. 100%.
I was married to a woman who could handle that, and then I got remarried to a woman who could handle that. And it's not easy to be an entrepreneur.
It's not.
As a man, if you're married to a spouse, or I suppose vice versa.
Yeah.
Someone who just doesn't understand.
They don't get it.
That's the way it goes. So good for her.
Yeah.
We should get her on the show and have her just talk to young women who are married to guys like us who, try to get them to understand this is kind of the price you pay. If you want that big payoff on the back end, there's some stuff you got to go through on the way.
Yep.
But somewhere along the way, you picked up a partner or two. How many partners? How did you meet them? How did you vet them?
I have two partners, right? And so at first I'm going to conferences, I'm going to meetups, and I'm realizing as I learn more about this multifamily space that I need partners. I need complementary skill sets. And I started to try to identify what do I like about this business and what do I hate about it? and what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses? And because at first I'm trying to do everything, Russ. And what I hate is sitting in front of an Excel spreadsheet. It drives me crazy, right? And having to model these deals. And I was doing all that stuff myself, and it's not my natural strength. I don't like it at all.
It's one of my favorites.
Okay, yeah, right. Well, maybe
Except
we can
I like
talk.
to do it with businesses, not so much deals. But
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay, so I liked raising money, managing the relationships, finding the deals, like being the deal guy, going out and trying to create something, create the plan. And I also needed like a partner that had a little bit of net worth to qualify for a loan, because my net worth was like 300K, right? So I met my first partner, Robert, who at a conference in Dallas in the summer of 2018.
That wasn't our conference, was it, or was it?
No, it wasn't. No,
okay.
No, it wasn't. No.
When did you come to our conference?
I went to your conference, I think in the fall of 2018, that same year.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was when I was on this journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember meeting you.
Yeah.
And of course, I remember meeting Robert, who'd come before.
He had been there before.
Yeah. So did he invite you? Is that how you ended up there?
No, I don't think so. No, because we were not we were not at your conference yet. It was a different conference. But he had been trying to get in for a few years as well. He had a construction background. And he also had enough
and a real estate broker's license.
And a real estate broker's license.
Yeah.
Yep. And he had enough net worth for us to qualify to sign on a deal, right? It's like, okay, you can help check some of these boxes. Because I kind of looked at myself as like a general manager of a sports team. Okay, and I'm putting together a roster. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's a great way to look at it. It's exactly the analogy I use with my team today.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah. Because one of the things that you learn in sports that they don't teach you in business, and it should be common sense, but for some reason entrepreneurs don't figure it out, is that you have starters and you have to have backup, right? Next man up. 100%. And in business, especially a small business, if you don't really invest in cross-training, you don't have next man up.
Yep.
And then the next man up is you for every single position on the field. And you can only get so big if you're going to be the backup for everybody. And that's a big mistake I see young entrepreneurs make. I certainly made it.
Yep. You got to have star players. You got to have role players. That's exactly right. And so, so Robert, could kind of fill that role. And we got along really well. And I had probably, quote unquote, dated 6 or 7 different partners prior to this, Russ, where I'm meeting them at conferences, meeting at meetups. Hey, you want to do multifamily? Yeah, me too. Okay, let's start getting on calls. Let's start underwriting deals. And some of them just simply don't want to work as hard as you. So you're like, this is not going to work, right? Some of them you may not have a good fit. Some people were actually very experienced and already had owned a lot of deals. And then I realized that they're just trying to use me for my sweat or, my energy. And it's like not a real partnership. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to partner with you. There was one guy, we had a nightly call for like 5 or 6 weeks and we were getting along really well, but his skill set was identical to my skill set. I needed an elite finance guy, right? So I told him, hey, you know what? This is not going to work. So anyways, fast forward, Robert and I, we meet in the summer 2018. We get our first deal under contract in October of 2018. It's just the two of us. We're trying to raise money.
So first deal in 2018. We're sitting here in 2024, 6 years later. Is that right? No, we're 2026.
2026, yeah.
8 years later.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah.
8 years later. So you built a billion-dollar company, multi-billion-dollar company in 8 years.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy.
That's remarkable. That's remarkable. So it's you and Robert. Was there any other partners?
Yeah. So then I knew I was missing like an elite finance guy. That's going to be my true complementary partner. When we tied up the first deal, we're trying to raise money. I met our CFO, Bikram. So Bikram Sandhu, who I met through a conference as well, I actually talked him into investing in the deal. And then after a little bit, I'm like, wow, this guy is really smart. He's a CPA, economics degree. He used to work at a Big 4 accounting firm as a corporate auditor. And Bikram really became my perfect complementary partner, okay, to do all the financial modeling, all that stuff, to oversee, post-acquisition asset management and watch all the numbers.
So now you're sitting in the CEO seat. You got Robert in the COO seat, and you've got Vikram in the CFO seat. Is that right?
Yeah. Robert was like chief construction officer. And initially, we weren't even a real company. We all had our own brands, Russ, and we're just kind of like dating. Co-GP, like we have an investor deck with 3 different logos. Right? Because you're like just partnering together.
So Rise48 wasn't a brand yet.
Rise48 was not existent yet.
Okay.
I think Rise48 we created in 2020. So we had done...
I remember that.
Yeah, it was like 5 or 6 deals we had done together. And then it was actually... And then it starts to get weird because it's like we don't have clearly defined roles, right? And I'm kind of more of like the type A alpha personality. So I always kind of been the leader. Robert's more laid back. Bikram is more submissive and is just like a worker bee, will do whatever needs to do for the team. And Bikram actually brought it up. He's like, hey, We need to become one unified brand, become a real company. Zach, you're the CEO.
Yeah.
I'll be the CFO. And Robert, you do the chief construction officer. And so, and that way we can really focus on building our own property management company, construction company, and you have to have those delineated roles. And I think I didn't want to seem arrogant to say I'm the CEO, but I think that having their support allows you to really, take advantage and embrace that role. And that's what had to happen. And then over time, and
they're both older than you.
They're both, Bikram and I are about 2 years apart. So
okay.
and we're really running the day to day. And then, Robert's a bit older than me. That's right. Yeah, but it's worked, and we're still together. We've done every single deal together. We've been through thick and thin, and we've been through adversity.
We're going to talk about that in a bit. So you've got now wife. When did the children start showing up?
We had our first child in April 24. So it was later on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so you waited to have children until you got this thing a little bit stabilized.
That's right.
Okay, good for you.
Yep.
That
got married in 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got your 2 other partners. There's the 3 of you, the 3 amigos. When did you give birth to the Rise48 brand?
That was like second half of 2020. We were Summit Equity, Russ, and we were buying deals under the Summit Equity brand. Then I got a cease and desist from a different Summit Equity that says we're Summit Equity and we have a trademark and we'll sue you if you don't change your name. And I was like, screw these guys, and called the trademark attorney. He looked it up. He said, yeah, they will sue you. So we had to change our name. And so we had just named a property like Rise on McDowell, the name of a street. And we asked the attorney, can we become Rise Equity? And he's like, no, it's not unique enough.
48 is the 48th state,
Correct.
Arizona. Got
we
it.
We didn't make it unique, yeah. So that's when we became that brand. We started the property management company in 21 and the construction company in 21. Started hiring staff, became vertically integrated in that year.
Okay, so as the CEO, you've got to be responsible for the strategic vision, the integration of the different departments, and then you also really have to have somebody focused on operations.
Yeah.
Because there's the scaling and I call them core functions. A core function, the way I look at it, is a set of processes, things that need to be done, a set of systems that support getting those processes done, and a set of people who actually operate those systems to do those processes. And those people don't just operate the processes, but they're also involved in continuous improvement and cross-training for redundancy at vital functions and identifying critical dependencies. So that's a philosophy that when you go in, it's like, okay, now I kind of have an idea how I need to organize this thing.
Yep.
Now there's the EOS thing. Kenny used EOS. He was members of YPO and EO. How did you figure out, going from a guy with a journalism degree and not a whole lot of business management experience, you had the sales experience.
Yeah.
How did you learn how to actually become an executive who's running a business and scaling it at the pace at which you guys are scaling?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I quit the job in January of 18. 18 months later, by the summer of 19, like I said, I was dead broke and I needed to make money while I'm trying to run this real estate company and keep it going. So I had a non-compete that expired in the hospice world. I took a position as the president and co-owner of a different hospice company. And so when I took that job, we had about 50 employees, and we quickly scaled that company to over 100 employees and sold that to a private equity company. So during the day, I was running a hospice organization as the president.
Were you a principal in that company when you sold?
I was a minority principal. Yep.
Okay, so you made some money on that deal.
Yep.
But you also got to step into the role of running a business that was semi-organized. So
exactly, and it gave me critical experience, Russ, on recruiting, interviewing, hiring, training, building out infrastructure. Okay, and it was in a different industry, but I learned about staffing ratios, systems, processes, how to make sure you're overseeing different departments. So, and then Bikram was working a full-time accounting job this time, and we're running our real estate company at night, literally. We're doing Zoom calls every night, Monday through Thursday, 6 to 10.
So was his accounting job like, was he doing business accounting? Was he like kind of company accounting?
Yes, he was doing corporate auditing of Fortune 100 companies.
Okay, so he's used to being in these big corporate environments with structure. And
exactly.
Okay.
And so you talk about the COO role. Bikram and I really have shared that role ever since we started. Because in the first 3 to 4 years, it was Bikram, myself, Robert, And then Bikron's wife and my wife were working in the company full time. Like my wife was she was VP of marketing, and Bikron's wife was doing investor relations. So like literally the 5 of us did every single role in every single department you can imagine, from acquisitions to underwriting, asset management, raising capital, investor reporting, accounting, distributions, everything. So we knew every little nook and cranny of every role. Once we started getting liquidity at the property level, we started selling our first properties. We reinvested all that into the company to start building infrastructure and building out departments to, like you said, finding role players and training them to do exactly what we're doing. Like for example, I'd be staying up till 1 or 2 a.m. a lot of nights just handling the transactions component of the acquisitions with all the loan docs, all the different paperwork. And I'm not like naturally a detail-oriented guy. Right, so it's just a killer. It's a killer.
It drove me crazy.
It drove me crazy. I did that for the first, I don't know, 8 or 9 deals, and then we hired a transaction guy, and I trained him how to do it. You know what I mean? So we start hiring all these different roles and building out infrastructure, and then just optimizing these processes, right? And so we learn as we go along.
Did you have coaches, mentors? Were you having anybody come in and adopting any methodologies? It's common, to hire an EOS implementer and have somebody come in.
We did not. And I don't say that arrogantly. We should have, honestly. I didn't have any mentors. I still don't really have any mentors that I can think of today. About a year ago, though, we implemented a program called Next Level Growth, which is basically like EOS. It was a former EOS implementer, and we had never done this until then. I mean, we probably waited a little too long. We had over 300 employees, and it has been very valuable. But prior to that, we did not do that. We basically just built this. I mean, I went to business school, I have an MBA, but you can only learn so much in business school until, you're actually doing it. And so, but it's been effective. And I think, implementing the tactical meetings and all the structure of like that EOS program has definitely been helpful, because the reason I decided to implement it last year is all of a sudden we're in 3 different markets, from the West Coast to the East Coast. I've got different management, middle managers in different markets. And the days of me being able to directly communicate with the frontline employees were gone. You've got middle managers and things like that. So we developed the core values, and all the different criteria to how to review people, interview them, things like that.
Yeah, culture's so important. The way I teach it is it's like a tree. So the roots are the mission, vision, values, and the bigger the tree gets, the deeper the roots have to go. And the leadership team is the stump. It's what supplies the mission, vision, values to the organization. The trunk is the legal structure, the accounting structure, and the tech structure. And you've got 3 branches. You got the onboarding of capital or investors. You got the onboarding of product or deals, and then you got the onboarding of team, because everything has to scale.
Right.
And when you realize it's alive, it's dynamic, and all growth is at the margin. If you get out of balance one side or the other, the tree's going to topple.
Yep.
And so
good analogy.
Trying to manage, well, that's the way I have to think of it, because the org charts didn't speak of the dynamism that I found that business was. Business was way more dynamic than an org chart could show you. But a tree, I can drive around and see trees every day, and I can see them fall over. I can see what happens if you don't prune them properly. I can see what happens if the roots don't go deep enough and a big storm comes. And so that's a good segue, speaking of storms, right? Yeah. Because so far it sounds like sunshine and unicorns for you, and you just marched off into the world, traipsed off into the world, and built a $1 billion plus company. But I know there were challenges along the way, and they weren't just personal frustrations. So we've got family. You get your family issues, and you're trying to manage your family.
Yep.
You've got your partnerships and a whole nother set of relationships and a whole nother set of loyalties. I was in a partnership for a long, long time. And in those partnerships, your partner's like your business wife.
Yep.
And then you've got your married wife. And then sometimes, they don't get along, or sometimes, priorities don't line up. Most conflict is when priorities like do this, right? You got some things in common, but you got some things where you see it very, very differently, both in your family life and in your business life. And then on top of that, we've had this recent thing that happened with a lot of people in multifamily where we hit the interest rate. So let's save that part for last.
Sure.
And let's just talk about some of the pressures you faced as a married man riding this wave of explosive growth and ambition, bringing on partners and having to flesh out who's in charge and whose ideas are going to stick, and maybe not always agreeing on everything. What are some of the darker moments that you're willing to talk about, and maybe some of the lessons that came out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm willing to talk about anything, honestly. I mean, I've learned a bunch of different lessons, and what I've learned is you got to be a killer. Like, you've got to have I don't know, you've got to have a hardened shell. And we've gone through a lot. I mean, a couple of the earlier deals, we would bring on like preferred equity investors or groups because we thought that that was a good idea. And then they'll screw us one way or another and you know, shake us down when we try to sell a deal for more money. And these are not my direct partners, Bikram or Robert, but I learned, you know, very early on that we need to have control. We need to have control of our deals, control of our own destiny, and be very careful who we take money from, right? And that's helped me negotiate later on through interest rate adversity with lenders, speak to investors. And so, I mean, we've raised $1.2 billion of equity from over 3,000 individuals. We have a lot of different capital partners. So there's a lot of different egos and relationships that I have to manage, right? We've got 15 different lenders they're the biggest publicly traded debt funds in the country. You know, and I've had to work out a lot of different loans the past couple of years and negotiate new loans amendments because of interest rates. And so, I mean, the biggest adversity, I tell people, it's funny, because some people the last few years, I mean, we'll get to this, with interest rates being tough, they're like, hey, are you doing okay? Like, it's been tough in multifamily. I'm like, honestly, this is all I've known, because the first 3 years I made no money. I was dead broke. 18, 19, 20, everybody said, you can't do it, you can't do it, you keep grinding. Then in 21, we start blowing up. And give context to the listeners here, Russ. From 2018, 2019, and 2020, 3 years, we bought 6 deals, 60 million, okay? In 2021 alone, we bought 16 deals, 560 million. And in 2022, about another 16 deals, 860 million. So we bought $60 million worth of deals in 3 years. And then the next 24 months, we bought $1.3 billion of deals. So I'm making a lot of money in 21, 22. And then in 22, interest rates skyrocket, okay? And we had a bunch of floating rate debt.
Yeah, I want to put this in context because I think a lot of people, I'm older than you. And there was, I remember double-digit interest rates. I bought my first investment property.
Yeah, you got to put it in context.
Nearly 13%.
Sure.
And so there are people out there who go, hey, what are you crying about? I mean, interest rates 6, 7%, even, that's not bad.
It's all relative.
Well, the reason it's relative, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, because if you go back and look at the financial history, Paul Volcker, after the dollar collapsed, after Nixon took us off the gold standard, eventually that inflation worked its way through the system. And in order to preserve the dollar, there was a lot of things that happened. But one of them is they took interest rates up over 20%. But the base they started from was close to 9. So they went from 9 to 20. So they basically doubled and a little bit more.
That's a good perspective.
But when the interest rates went up on you, interest rates were 0.25, 25 basis points, and they went to 5.25.
Yes.
That is a 20 times increase, not a double.
Yep.
It was
20x.
literally 1,000 times worse what we just went through in the financial markets than what happened back then. And so people who just fixate on the number, the interest rate, don't realize the difference. Imagine just operating your home and you have a credit card payment that you make or a car payment that you make or a mortgage payment that you make based on the interest rate, and you can handle it.
Right.
And then one day you wake up and it's 20 times higher
than what you were paying.
Yeah, that's how bad it was.
And it happened quickly too.
It happened.
It was almost an unprecedented
the curve.
The time. Yeah.
Yep. It was steeper. It was more aggressive than any other interest rate hike in history. So, if you were out there and you were in one of these multifamily deals and the deal blew up because of the financial stack, understand there wasn't really a precedent for you guys to go, oh, this could happen.
Yeah.
You had to really be on your game. Now, we talked about Kenny earlier, and I'm partners with Kenny in the Collective Inner Circle Mastermind. So we talk about these things. And over the years, seeing him talk about what he thought could happen and prepare for it, he was so far ahead. He was literally doing cash in refinances, raising his interest rate in order to secure that rate, believing that in 2 years, that rate was going to look real good, even though it was painful at the time.
Right.
But of all the people I know, and I know a lot of people, he's the only one I know who figured that out.
Yeah.
And so you had to deal with the ramifications of this like a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I invited you on the show, as I shared with you before we hit the record button, is I had read somewhere, I think on LinkedIn, that you had been doing a really good job dealing with the problem and handling the investor calls and communicating really with a lot of transparency to your investor base. So I was intrigued and I want to know, first of all, maybe how bad did it get?
Yeah.
And then how did you deal with that? Not just tactically, but how did you deal with it emotionally
Right.
and managing the team as the leader of the team? And then how did you deal with it at home when now your brain is going 24/7,
Yeah.
every day of the week, you're just focused on this. It's hard to be present with your kids
Yeah.
when the business is burning
when
down.
you
I
always
know
get it.
because I've had it happen.
Yeah.
How did you handle all that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, so like you said, nobody saw it coming. I mean, you've even got the biggest institutions in the world, Goldman Sachs, Blackstone. They didn't see it coming because they've lost deals. And we're all looking at this forward-looking interest rate curve, right? And it didn't show that that was going to happen. And so the groups that had floating rate debt, really got caught off guard. And so when we talk about how bad did it get, well, we're almost like one of the last of the Mohicans. Like we have not lost any investor capital, never missed a debt payment. We're able to rework all of our loans. So we're in good shape. We haven't lost any money, but it was stressful
So you
as
were
hell.
in there aggressively renegotiating the existing debt to prevent the default, but you got ahead of it.
We basically outlasted. So here's what I'll tell you. Basically, people had interest rates at like around 3%. We're buying deals at 3%. Well, we had interest rate caps on these floating rate loans, okay? And the reason we do floating rate is so that we don't have a prepayment penalty, okay? Because nobody thought rates would go up. So we bought a cap for 3 years, but my cap is like 5.5%, 6%. Well, within a matter of months, your rate goes from 3 to 6 and your debt service doubles. And a lot of groups didn't have caps at all, Russ, or they had a 1-year cap, right? And they were just toast. And so all of a sudden your property is negatively cash flowing. So this was happening in 2022. In end of 22, I said, okay, the writing's on the wall and these rates going to keep going up. So in 23, we went balls to the wall with renovations. I said, we need to renovate everything as fast and as hard as we can. So we renovated almost 2,000 units just in 12 months here in Phoenix. And we got average rental increases of $450.
So that's a bold move.
It was a bold move because what was happening,
everybody
else is doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Everybody, to your point, everybody else is basically saying, we're not going to renovate. We don't want to spend CapEx dollars. We need to preserve liquidity. We'll outlast the interest rate hikes. And I said, here's my analogy. And maybe this is a little bit, politically incorrect, but I'm saying I'm sitting in the house and I hear a burglar at the front door and he's got a gun and he's banging on the door. Right? And so I can either sit here and hope he leaves, or I can grab my gun and I'm going to go shoot him. Right? And so a lot of people were hoping the burglar leaves and they're just going to outlast and hope the interest rates go up. And I said, we need to be proactive. Let's go all in, spend the CapEx dollars, spend the money to renovate the units and increase the rent. So we had these massive rental increases in 23.
So were your partners on board? What went on in the boardroom at that level?
So Bikram and I really run everything. Robert isn't as hands-on, and Bikram trusts me. Sometimes he will, I'm the gas, he's the brakes, right? But when I feel very adamant about something, then we typically do it, right? If we feel like it's the right thing. And he thought it made sense theoretically, right? He might be a little bit nervous, but that got almost all those deals back to cash flow positive because we forced the appreciation, okay? Meanwhile, a lot of groups are starting to now have to do capital calls. Then they're getting foreclosed on in 23. And we're playing offense and defense. So I'm like trying to take care of these deals. We sold the first 11, they're home runs. The deals that we bought at the end of 21, early 22, all get impacted by interest rates. We quickly adjusted our underwriting model in the summer of 22 to adapt to these new rates. So since the summer of 22, we've bought 32 deals over $1 billion of real estate. Those are all distributing to investors. Right? Those didn't get impacted by the interest rates. So we've been kind of like the Grim Reaper playing offense the last few years as well and going and buying new deals that are distressed.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's where Ken's at.
Exactly. That's where Ken's at as well. But to answer your question about what are you going through, it's extremely stressful and you feel a ton of anxiety because also in 23, there's like this online real estate tabloid that does a hit piece on us. Right? And they're including some other groups.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so this is like a lot of people know me from that, which is kind of funny in hindsight. But at the time, it was extremely stressful. Right? So there are groups that are getting actively foreclosed on. Right? And we never even missed a debt payment. And they do this article, and a reporter reaches out to me and said, hey, we're going to do an article and we're going to say you're distressed, blah, blah, blah. We're going to tie in with the other groups. And I said, wait. No, here's all the facts. I gave her all the numbers, all the performance. The next day, she writes the article, publishes it, and she omitted everything I said in there, okay? And so I'm getting just ping, 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 all these text emails from investors.
Yeah.
Investors start seeing them. What is this? What is going on? They're freaking out. And I'm like, I gotta I mean, this is not fair. You know what I mean? And trust me, I went to journalism school. Like I went to the top, I know what journalism ethics are. And I understand the mass communication and how to control a narrative. And I said, you know what? This is not fair that she's just writing this hit piece without the facts. I need to control my own narrative. So I recorded a video. It was like about 15 minutes. And I literally shared my screen and I went through all the emails. And I basically called her out and said, I told her this, this, and this. She's inaccurate, completely made up. And I posted it. And it's got like hundreds of thousands of views on LinkedIn now. But it was just a thing. People kind of knew us from that. And so then I kind of get, now we're like a target, for this group. And then we've got competitors, right? Who are probably upset that we grew fast, whatever. And they start making anonymous posts on anonymous blogs saying, oh, Rise48's committing a Ponzi scheme, or these guys are going under. Mm-hmm. So now, and still to this day, we're always raising money. We have to deal with this stuff where we've got investors Googling us because like, hey, I want to invest Rise48, and they see, what is this article from 3 years ago? Or what is this person saying that you're committing a Ponzi scheme? Recently, we had a judge approve a subpoena. We subpoenaed the anonymous blog, and we found out who it was, and sure enough, it's a competitor. And we just came to a settlement with him so we don't sue him. He paid us tens of thousands of dollars. 2 other people I found out.
That's it?
I know. 2. Well, we're working on another one. We're using him as a precedent. 2 others I found out who they were, and we told their CEO and they fired them. They're both competitors. And so that's the unfortunate thing of this internet age, is that people can just post stuff anonymously and people believe it. But we're going after these people. I've got a bulldog litigation attorney right now going after some of these people. But so long story short is like, you're already dealing with all the pressure of your lenders, your investors. Now you've got this external media pressure, right? And other people coming. And leading up to that point, with where I was like kind of in my entrepreneurial journey, my philosophy, like I was an undersized offensive lineman. I always had a warrior mindset. Like I'm just going to hit you in the mouth, outwork you. And so you translate that to real estate or to entrepreneurialism. And I started like working too much, Russ. Like I would basically get there at like 8 or 9 in the morning, and I would keep Bikram there till 9 o'clock every night at the office. So we're going to grind 12 hours a day. 12, 13 hours a day, every night. And sometimes on Fridays, we leave at like 7. And then when I get home, I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna work out till like midnight. I'm gonna go to bed at like 12 or 1. I'm gonna wake up and do it again. Well, when you start having all this pressure and you're not getting enough sleep, and it's not good for you, right? So I remember in the beginning of 24, I'm about to have my first baby. And I'm thinking like, when I have this baby, I can't be just like staying at the office till 9 and then working out and coming home at like 12 or 1. I'll never see them. And so I had to, I reread a book that I had read in 2018 when I started my journey, was the Miracle Morning. Miracle Morning.
Hal
Elrod. Yeah, exactly. And following a lot of this stuff. And like, at that time, I was trying to create structure, and I was listening to like David Goggins, Navy SEAL, ethos, all that stuff. So I had to get back into those good habits. And I started going to bed at 8:30 p.m.
It's really interesting. I just want to draw out the point. You did it instinctively, but for people who don't understand how to transform, Romans 12:2 says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It all starts in your thoughts. And so what you did, what you just said, is you started putting thoughts in your head in order to modify your own behavior.
Yes.
And I just want to capture that for everybody. If you're a young person out there and you don't understand that principle, Kenny talked about it when I did the interview with him. And of course, he's my age, so he's way older than you. And he talked about when he was a young man, it started for him in just putting good ideas in their head. And I would argue, I'm going to guess you've been doing this for a long time. It's just kind of your standard MO. It's like breathing. But for people who aren't in the habit of doing that,
yeah, you're right.
The reason you can produce results is because you take effective action. And the reason you take effective action is because you put good ideas in your head. And people want to change their results, and they think if you could just show me how to do it, but it won't work because you'll not be able to make decisions. But second, you won't even have the discipline to do it because you didn't put the thought process in first. So it always starts with feeding your mind first. And you just did that. I wanted to draw attention to it.
That's a great point, Russ. And you're right. At this point, I do it all the time, and I just take it I don't recognize I do it because I take it for granted. But in 2018, when I quit the job and I went from being an employee mindset to waking in the morning saying, what do I do today? Like, you're freaking out. Like, what do I do? I don't have structure. I started consuming all these audiobooks. And one of the big ones that I read at least 10 times was How to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that's exactly what that book talks about, right? It's all about basically envisioning and manifesting what you want to happen. And as an entrepreneur, you have to do that, right? Because you have to become a creator. And so that's what I had to start to do. And you do it for your personal life, for your family, for your business, and you get in the habit of it. And you have to feel the permission of all of those people around you and the support. I have to have my wife's support and permission that she trusts me to be the alpha to make these decisions for our family. I have to have my business partners and my employees' support and confidence so that I feel confident and I have the permission to make these decisions and know that I'm doing it in the best interest. And over time, you build up that confidence and you build up that support. But initially, and you'll go through different trials where it's tough because you're like, am I making the right decision? Am I letting all these people down? Am I letting these investors down? And what I had to do, Russ, was I had to disconnect that my identity was tied to this company. Because when you start, your identity is the company. If the company does a bad month or a bad quarter, you feel like an absolute failure. And you can't do that because that can start to deteriorate your confidence, your mindset, everything.
So how did you replace the bad thought with the good thought? How did you train yourself to do it right?
So it comes back to these habits. It comes back to these disciplines and consistency. And one of it is also my faith. Like, I'm Christian. I believe Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And it's funny, I'm guilty of this, and I think a lot of humans are, but it's like when things are good, I start straying away from God. And when things are bad, I start praying more and asking for his help and to surrender to him. And that helps to relieve that burden. And I had to do that in the beginning because I didn't know where to go and I needed him to help me get through the adversity. And then you have to remember to do that during the good times too. But that's where it starts. And then it also comes down to these habits. It's like, okay, it's not rocket science, but it's not easy to do. I started going to bed at 8:30 and waking up at 4:30, and I wake up feeling good and refreshed.
That's my life.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah, you know how it goes. And I don't feel like crap. And then I wake up and I work out. During the peak of some of my anxiety, this was near the end of 23, 24, I listened to a book called Wim Hof Method.
Yeah.
Breathing method, you're familiar with that, right? And so I started doing that. And I don't do it every day, but if I'm going to do like public speaking or presentations, I'll do a breathing. But I do cold showers every morning. I eat the same exact thing every single meal, 7 days a week, right? So I meal prep eggs and turkey bacon in the morning, and then I just eat ground beef for lunch and dinner. So I don't have to think about it. It gives me sustained energy. And then I drink at least 2 gallons of water a day, right? So staying consistent helps everything else. It helps my mindset, my attitude, my mood, my energy. And now I'm clear and I can release. I don't have all this stress and anxiety, right? And so, and what I had to realize is like working 12 or 13 hours a day, and some people do it, and God bless them, right? And it's impressive, and they don't need as much sleep. I need 8 hours of sleep. Otherwise, I'm not as productive. I'm just not. I have to be on, like I'm not the most talented, the most smart. I have to be the most disciplined. I have to be the most consistent. And I always tell myself, embrace the boredom. You know what I mean? Because naturally, when I try to stray off and do different things, there's a book called Mastery by Robert Greene, and he talks about embrace the tedium. Like you have to embrace the tedious, boring hours, the 10,000 hours. And sometimes I'm like, man, this was a boring day. But I'm like, well, you didn't screw anything up or do anything detrimental to the business. And sometimes you're going to have days like that. And maybe you're building towards that. So, I mean, I'm in a great spot. And we're still going through adversity. Like we still have to, take care of deals from 21, 22 with high interest rates, and we're still raising new money. I still have enemies and competitors talking crap about us, and I have to send them demand letters. I just did one this week. But you don't take it as seriously because you're able to just look at it as it's all a game, right? And you're really like a strategic person.
Yeah.
And you need to separate the family component. And I do that, and I try to do the best you can, right? And so, but those disciplines are everything for me.
So you've touched a little bit on balance, which I think is super important, and how you create some of that balance. But let's add another word in there that is harder to see, but we all know, anybody that's been in the seat, and that's presence.
Yeah.
Right? You can balance your schedule and be physically where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, but being present. And the key to being able to fall asleep is being present, right? Because if you're present in the office and your body's in the bed, you can't sleep.
Yep.
And I've had many, many sleepless nights in my career, and practicing presence is super important. How do you do that?
Yeah.
Or do you? Is it an area you're good at? Is it an area you struggle at? You've got kids, you've got a wife, you've got things you've got to focus on that aren't business, even though you got fires raging. How do you deal with that?
It's a great question. So I have a lot of weaknesses, but honestly, I think presence is one of my greatest strengths. And like people say they have sleepless nights. Like I don't really have sleepless nights. Like even when things were really stressful, and there are nights where I'm going to bed and I'm thinking about all these different things, and I will just take very deep, slow breaths. And I have to remind myself I cannot do anything about that right now. And throughout the entire day, 7 days a week, you have to remind yourself, I can only focus on what I can control.
Sufficient for the day is its own trouble.
Yes, exactly. So you have to focus on what can I control, and I think I've done a good job at becoming very aware of my own physical reaction to emotions or thoughts. Like if I'm feeling stressful or stressed, or I'm feeling like my heart rate has increased, I'm trying to reflect what just happened. Like what is it? And then I'll think about it. Well, I mean, I can't control that, or screw this person. What do I care what they think? And I need to focus on what is the most important thing, right? Because the reality is when you look back at stuff, it's never that important, never as important as it seems. Or scary stuff is never as big of a deal once you do it. And so it's always just putting those things in perspective. And then I try to tell myself all the time, Russ, I'm like, well, I put these scenarios in my head, right? I'm like, well, if I lose all my money today and I lose all my employees and my company and everything, I still have my faith in God. I have my wife and my kids. And I could rebuild everything else. So
well, I tell you, it happened to me. I was 48 years old when it happened. And so it was hard on my faith, to be honest. I felt like the God that I thought I knew from the people who had taught me about him, he didn't show up the way I thought he should. And I kind of had a bad attitude about it. And so I just dumbed it down to there's a God and I'm just going to grind it out. I kind of have more of a deist approach to it. The idea that, hey, he put the ball in motion, put me on the field, and like, I'm on my own from here.
Yeah.
But in time, he brought me through, brought me back, healed me. And so I'm happy to say that was a great journey. So hopefully you never have to go through that. It sounds like you're doing a lot of things right. In our time remaining, we just got a little bit of time left. I want to talk to you about your role as a visionary. You're here in the CEO seat. You are having to think ahead, 5 moves ahead, Patrick, Bet David, or maybe 10 or 15 if you want to play 3D chess. But when you're looking around at the economy, when you're looking around what's going on, you don't have what I have or what Kenny has. You don't have a 40, 50-year perspective, right? But you have a perspective, and how do you deal with seeing the future? And then what are you seeing right now sitting in your seat? You bullish, you nervous, what keeps you up at night? Where I suppose maybe that's not a good word, but what's on your mind when you're trying to mitigate risk, and where do you see the biggest opportunities in today's market in your space?
Yeah, it's a great question. You're right. I don't have the experience of living as long as other people, but I've realized with all the interest rate increases the last 5 years, and then all this new supply of apartments that hit the market the last few years, which honestly was the bigger challenge than interest rates.
And all the tenants being deported.
Exactly. And then ICE taking our tenants. Yeah, exactly.
I just heard that the national rent dropped 17% on average right now or something like that.
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. We're seeing it. It's tough. I've started to look at historical trends, and I'm a big reader of biographies. So I recently just read John D. Rockefeller's biography. I'm reading Benjamin Franklin's. I've done, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, and I'm trying to understand the different ages of American history and what were these people thinking and what was happening during the Industrial Revolution, and what did Rockefeller do to gain an advantage for his time? What did these tech entrepreneurs do? I just listened to a bunch of stuff on Mark Andreessen and Larry Ellison. So Larry Ellison started in the 70s when he started Oracle. What was he doing to be innovative at that time, which seemed crazy or risky, but worked out, and now he's a visionary? Or Andreessen, who created Netscape. And so, I think I'm naturally an optimist, right? So I don't get freaked out because I feel like whatever does happen, it's going to impact all of us. And even right now in multifamily, I look at it as I'll drag you into the mud with me and drown you. You know what I mean? I will outlast you. That's how I look at it. I honestly think the multifamily market was getting overheated, and now a bunch of our competition is dead, and now they're going to be gone, and we'll survive and get through it, and it's going to give us a competitive advantage. Right now, I've been telling our team about AI, right? I thought AI was kind of BS the last few years, Russ. And now in the last, we talked about this recently, the last 8 weeks with this Claude Code, I'm a huge believer. I've been telling our team the last 8 weeks, this is our gold rush. This is our .com boom. let's take full advantage. So I'm actually optimistic because of what AI can do, and it's going to be the haves and the have-nots. Those who take advantage and embrace it are going to make a lot of money, do really well, and if you don't, you're going to get left behind.
So I saw a speech. I went to a conference in Dallas year before last, and I saw Tom Bilyeu, who sold Quest Nutrition for $1 billion. And he's got a mastermind. I joined it. And he, at the speech, said, look, here's AI. I know you're concerned about it. I know some of you don't like it. I know some of you have religious convictions about it. But here's the fact of the matter. It's here. And some people are going to use it and some people aren't. And there's going to be two classes of people. There's going to be the people who use it and the AI Amish. And I have a buddy of mine that is in Lancaster, and for the first time in my life, I went and visited him a couple of years ago. I saw Amish, the Amish. And I'm not putting anybody down.
No, yeah.
But I'm just saying, they're going down the road in a horse and buggy, moving at a pace.
Yeah.
And I'm going in a car, getting from point A to point B at a better pace. And so from a productivity perspective, and business
Quality
is about
of
productivity.
Life, productivity, everything.
So I'm not... Now, the other thing I'll say about AI, too, just to give you a little perspective, do you know who Andy Grove is?
Yes.
Or was?
Intel?
Andy Grove,
One of the first Intel
so he was the CEO of Intel for a while. I grew up in Silicon Valley, so a lot of these clients were, a lot of these companies were customers of mine or prospects of mine. And my dad was a high-tech entrepreneur, and I watched them raise money. And, I even took a deal up to Sand Hill at one point. So on the AI front, so he wrote a book when the internet was first coming. And he was, as a CEO now, looking down the road. And he was looking at it like, okay, it could be good and it could be bad. And he was laying out in his book, I wish I could remember the title of it. I have it like literally sitting in my desk. Because it reminds me that anytime there has been a technological, not an incremental move, but an exponential move. The internet was an exponential move, like the telephone, right? It was an exponential move. The personal computer, these are exponential moves. Right now, the AI is going to be one of those explosive moves. You're saying it, you're seeing it, I'm seeing it. I think people are seeing it. And there's a lot of fear out there. Andy Grove wasn't an optimist and he wasn't a pessimist. He was a scientist. He's like, okay, it could be good, it could be bad. We're going to watch it very carefully and adapt our business strategy to it. And of course, it was very good for Intel. It was very good for the economy. It was very good. And I think that every technological revolution has a whole bunch of people that have the potential to be disenfranchised. But the opportunity then, as we've talked earlier, is to go from being replaced by it to using it to grow a business that you own and control yourself. So share some of the things that you were talking about. I mean, you mentioned it, but it doesn't have to be AI. I mean, I kind of cut you off there. I just
it's fine. No,
I thought you'd enjoy the Andy Grove story, but
no, I do.
But where do you see the biggest opportunities in your business? What do you see happening in the economy? Do you have thoughts on that? The political environment, anything goes here, right? Because you can't have things you can't think or talk about to be politically correct when you're trying to navigate $1 billion company.
100%. Yeah, exactly right. And I agree with that whole perspective and context, by the way, too. So again, I was skeptical of AI. I was like, what is it really doing? What are the use cases? How do we actually apply this to our business? Most people who hear AI right now are only thinking of the LLM models, Chat GPT, right? I'm going to type in there, it's going to give me answers, which are impressive, but is that going to really change our lives? No. Okay, well, things have just changed, like in the last 8 to 12 weeks, and I'm not an AI tech guy. I'm like trying to learn this, and I've got our staff, I've created like a little AI committee. I've got 6 employees that are working on this every single day now, and they're like getting deep into it. So Claude, which is basically a Chat GPT competitor, released what's called Claude Code, which basically allows you to write code. Regular people like you and I who are not software engineers can now create apps. Like you can create an app on a phone if you want to.
I'm literally doing it right now.
Okay, you're creating an app.
It's my pet project for the last 6 days.
All right, you already know, Russ. Russ is creating an app. You can create apps. You can create websites. You can create any type of technology. And you can use agents, which are bots, which basically are little, think of it as like an AI employee that you can tell what to do, and it's literally going to go do stuff. So now this whole game has changed where these bots can do work for you, okay? And so we are creating our own operating system where basically most things can be automated. Like I think that any of these professional like services companies, a lot of these jobs are going to get eliminated completely. Accounting, legal work, et cetera, because the AI and the bots can do all of it for you. I mean, a lot of people are saying, and I believe it, Russ, that by the end of 27, unemployment might be 10 or 15%, because it's going to replace so many of these different occupations. I mean, we're using it right now. We're creating our own CRM system, which is going to replace HubSpot. We're creating our own HCM, like human capital management, which is like your payroll company. We're creating our own one right now, and it's going to be done in like a few weeks. We're automating all of our accounting stuff where we used to have like employees do manual entry. So some people are going to be really concerned saying, oh, you're going to eliminate all these jobs, which is true. But what it's going to do for a lot of people is going to elevate the tasks of your employees. So they're not wasting their time doing clerical administrative work. They can be focusing more on vision, strategy, and you use the AI to execute, to save yourself time, right? And it can collapse things. Like, for example, we do 4,000 monthly direct deposit distributions, ACH distributions to our investors every month. My controller was spending 2 weeks of his month, every month the last few years doing this. We had created an investor portal. We have software engineers in Ukraine, like 5 years ago. We reached out to them a couple months ago. We said, hey, we want to automate this. How long will it cost? How long will it take? How much will it be? It says it's going to be about 6 months, at least 100, 200K just for us to look into it, figure out. With this Claude code, we automated everything in 2 days. So now this guy's like, what do I do? And I said, you need to focus on how to use this more throughout the company. And now you're going to become like our AI guy. And that's what he's spending his time, because he's basically replaced his job with all these automations. And it costs us a $200 monthly subscription.
You know, in the EOS model, I talk about elevate and delegate. And so or delegate and elevate, whatever it is. The idea is that you have a job that you're doing, and then you train the next person to do it so you can move up and on to a bigger and better
Same
task.
concept.
So I agree with you. I think it's going to unleash phenomenal growth. I think there are going to be people who are going to be displaced by it, but I think the displacement will be temporary, because one thing I have faith in is the human spirit. They're going to figure it out, right? We always figure it out. We will figure it out. I think we're a pretty compassionate society. We're not going to leave people behind, but we're going to create new opportunities for people. Transitions are always difficult. If you've ever purchased, I mean, you purchase these apartment complexes. They have a team, they have a staff, they have a culture, they have a way of doing things. You guys come in there and say, hey, new sheriff in town, you know, we need to improve performance, we need to improve customer service, we need to clean things up. You know, certain things that used to go on here aren't going to be tolerated anymore. That's the bad news. The good news is, boy, if you make the cut, it's going to be good. You're going to make more money. You're going to have less problems. It's going to be fantastic. So I think we're going through a big remodel in our economy and our financial system right now. I tend to be bullish on it.
I am too.
Because anytime you've lived through a remodel, it looks chaotic, it looks difficult, it looks scary, and you wonder if it's ever going to end. But at the end, when it's done, and you're looking at this pristine, remodeled, well-functioning facility, in this case, the economy, you say, oh, this is pretty good. Right? And so I think that's what's going to happen. Hey, we've run out of time. I think we could go on and on. I will absolutely have you back.
That'd be awesome. Thanks so much, Russ.
It's been a pleasure. But if people want to find you, Zach, follow you, find out more about Rise48, where do they go?
They can go to our website, rise48equity.com, and they can set up a call with our team or learn more about us. We'd love to talk to them.
Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's Zach Haptonstal from Rise48. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next Main Street Capitalist Show.